Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. Let's go on our topic. In the previous chapter, we considered living as a combined behavior. Similarly, we can regard a person's nightly sleep as a behavior. Then, the G waves that lead to this behavior include the excitement of the parasympathetic nervous system and the secretion of corresponding body fluids. Thus, the rhythmic activation of the combined G that leads to the sleep behavior is not difficult to understand. Similarly, the continuation of a behavior often means the continuation of the corresponding behavioral G wave. Therefore, I believe that within the duration of the behavior G, the G that generates this behavioral G wave is in an activated state. That is to say, the activation of a G often lasts for a certain time interval, not necessarily being instantaneous or transient. However, the flash of some of our desires is often instantaneous or transient. Why? This is more likely that the G wave of the corresponding desire wins out in the vector effect at a certain moment and is then projected onto the G wave display area or the focus area. Since the activation of a G can last for a certain time interval, this can better explain topics such as rats attributing vomiting to food and recently activated G being more easily activated, mentioned earlier in these videos. Due to the existence, due to the existence of the vector effect of G waves, the activation of a G does not necessarily lead to an obvious corresponding behavior. For the activation of a G that fails to result in a behavior, what effects do its G waves have? If you have carefully listened these videos, you will surely realize that these G waves will still be projected and reshape the G that generates them. What kind of effect might this reshaping have? Let's use a story as an analogy. In ancient times, a scholar obtained a painting. In the painting was the back view of a woman. Just looking at the back, the woman had a delicate figure and graceful manners. The scholar was entranced and firmly believed that the woman must be extremely beautiful. But the scholar didn't know where the woman was and was also restricted by traditional fe- feudal moral concepts. He never took strong actions to look for the woman. Later, the scholar developed a serious love sickness and lost his appetite. Note that the loss of appetite here reflects the strength of the scholar's admiration due for the woman in its brain. Why? Because H-G wave has a vector effect with the scholar's eating G wave. Although it didn't completely make the scholar stop eating, it made the eating G wave within win out only slightly. The scholar's later state of love sickness reflects the evolution of the admiration Jew formed when he first saw the painting. This is a process in which the Jew is continuously strengthened by its own Jew wave. However, for the steam painting, another scholar also liked it very much after seeing it, but he quickly forgot the woman in the painting. Why? Although both liked it at first, one developed love sickness while the other could forget. First, the degree of their liking may be different, which is reflected in the strength of their admiration due. Second, the due environments where the admiration due is located in their brains are different. Since the due environment has electrophysical properties and various due waves, it will affect the corresponding G. This kind of influence is usually slow but cannot be ignored. This is also an important factor in the decline of a G over time. Another factor is the self-evolution of the G itself due to its organic nature. These two factors can cause the G to gradually decline and even disappear. Reflected in behavior, it is the forgetting of certain things, throwing a big cigarette butt and throwing a small cigarette butt have different effects, and throwing it on dry grass is different from throwing in a bush. The first scholar like a big cigarette butt that starts a big fire, while the second scholar is like a cigarette butt that goes out. If you are an ambitious person eager to become extremely successful in a certain field, you might as well draw on the cigarette butt metaphor just now. To start a raging fire, having a platform of dry grass is of course better. But it's also best to ensure that the cigarette butt you throw is big enough. Oops, I digressed. So, how to treat a situation like the first scholar's love sickness? Uh, how to treat the situation where a certain type of G is overly strong. In behavioral psychology, and there is aversion therapy, which essentially forms a G connection by making the target G and the discomfort sub-G have a simultaneous activation effect. In the story of the scholar, there was a master too. Master who, when the scholar was in a trance, used magic to turn the woman's face in the painting around. Unfortunately, the woman was extremely ugly, and the scholar was so disgusted that he vomited. From then on, he no longer fancied the woman in the painting, and his love sickness disappeared. In this result, the ugly face of the woman, as a characteristic internal structure, was input into the scholar's brain and combined with his expected G wave in terms of characteristic internal structure. The scholar's previous expected G wave was nothing more than content like mutual affection and sharing a bed. After the combination of characteristic internal structures, a kind of pseudo a reality experience G wave that was very distressing was formed. This kind of G wave was diffusely projected, not only failing to activate his cognitive view of the beauty of the opposite sex at the moment, but also strongly activating his cognitive view of the ugliness of the opposite sex at the moment. It would also strongly activate the self-view or other view related to honor and disgrace. The activation of this G environment would strongly activate many of his discomfort sub-G through G connections. Here's other thought provoking question. If the scholar later learned that someone had used magic to treat his love sickness and that the woman in the painting was not actually ugly, how would the scholar react? Okay, that's all the content today. How do you feel? Please leave the comment below. See you next time. Bye bye.